All right, Reject Nation. Well, we already put up our quick thoughts on YouTube. You might have already caught it, but today we're going to do our official movie review of Tomb Raider.
That's right.
Two things before we go into this. A couple of thank yous. First thank you would have to be to my brother, Jabby Koei from the Get Jabby YouTube channel.
Jabby.
He helped get us into the screening. He's the only reason we got into an early screening, so thank you so much, my literal brother. You can go check out his movie review on his channel, that is Get Jabby. And second thing is we want to give a shout out and a big thank you to today's video sponsor who we've loved working with, viewerreviews.com. Viewer Reviews is a new social platform that determines how well you will like a movie based on your taste in the films you reviewed on the site.
Viewer Reviews also helps you to connect with people who share your passion and taste for movies.
Think of it like a more personalized Rotten Tomatoes tailored directly to your and your friends' cinematic taste.
We just started using Viewer Reviews and the matches are pretty spot on.
Real easy to get started. Once you create an account, you'll fill out a couple basic questionnaires to give the site a sense for your specific taste.
And from there, you're ready to start reviewing movies, sharing your taste, and connecting with people.
So hit that link down in the description box, people, and check out viewerreviews.com today, and don't forget to follow The Real Rejects. Viewer Reviews has been very kind to us, so thank you for sponsoring this video.
And we're starting to post written reviews, so, you know, in case you're interested in that.
Okay, let's do our actual movie review now. Reasons to see and reasons not to see Tomb Raider. Reason to see number one, definitely Alicia Vikander as Lara the Croft. Okay, if there's one thing you gotta give this movie, even if you don't like the movie as a whole, if you don't like the plot or whatever, Alicia Vikander kills it in this movie,
Yes,
man.
ma'am.
From a physical standpoint, yes, she is ripped like nobody's business, man. Like her first scene, not like
She got the abs.
but she got the abs, man.
Yeah.
And she's this really emotional character, but beyond being like emotional, deep, and heavy, it's the lighter moments of her character that I really appreciated. Moments of conversation, moments of just talking or chatting where you see this is a fully three-dimensional character. I felt like I was just watching a human being interact with people or being put in strenuous situations throughout the whole film.
She can plausibly kick an ass, but she's plausibly vulnerable, and the movie takes time to relish in her performance. I mean, it's not necessarily a character study, but each major challenge this movie presents her with, not only does she rise to that, but you also get to see in Alicia Vikander's performance the effect it's having on her, the impact, and that's just details that we don't often get, especially in movies like these, and in a lot of just standard action movies, we don't get those.
I watched all the cutscenes for the Tomb Raider game that this movie is mainly inspired from. In terms of video game character bringing to real life, she totally reminds me of Lara Croft from the video game. I love all the details to the action sequences of this woman who struggles, a woman who has to learn.
And adapt and be resourceful.
Exactly. You do see her at a starting point where she has to grow. If you're going to compare it to the Angelina Jolie version, where she's just badass and ready to kill whatever moment, and she can handle anything until like the finale. That's not this character. From the very beginning, you're like, oh, this woman has some things to learn. She has to get stronger emotionally, physically, mentally. Damn, does she pull off a great arc in this film. I thought she's perfect in this movie.
Yeah, and she's also perfectly her father's daughter without it being the explanation for how she's just able to do everything.
Yeah.
It's like totally easy. Like you get where she derives her spunk and her spirit from, but she's still got to work at it, and Alicia Vikander kills it. Reason to see number two, the supporting cast.
The supporting cast is really good in this film. No one really shines as much as Alicia Vikander does, nor do they have to. They're the supporting cast, and the main character, Lara Croft, is the one they have to really nail down. But in terms of material that's been given to the actors, they're written just decently enough. The cast, they do elevate the material they've been given. Walton Goggins is the main villain, Matthias, in this film. A very different approach than the cliche villain we're used to. It's very different from the video game Matthias, but in terms of a movie and what they do with the villain, they could have easily made this some cliche bad dude who's just evil.
They could have made
greedy.
him Bobby Cannavale in Jumanji.
Yeah. But instead, they gave him a character here that has a real motivation, has some real emotional depth. The other character in there, Dominic West, as Richard Croft, he's not really shown in the trailers, and that's for good reason, so I don't want to say too much, but his performance could have easily just been another cliched character. And while there's cliche things to be had with his character, Dominic West brings a level of life to it, and more importantly, the father-daughter relationship incredibly believable in this film.
One of the biggest standouts for me is Daniel Wu as Lu Ren. I really liked the little bond that he forms with Lara and the way they play off each other, and as you pointed out, the fact that this movie doesn't feel the need to make it a love interest thing. Like, they're able to just work together, and I believe their rapport back and forth a whole lot.
And that's another character that could have easily been brushed to the side, but they decided to do something with him and elevate him and make it more meaningful without doing too much. There were times where I'm like, are we gonna get more focus? Oh, we didn't. Okay, perfect. That's like the right amount. That's all I needed from the guy.
It's like the writing is enough to make these more than nothing characters, and then the rest, the actors do a really fine job for the most part of filling in the blanks and making them feel real and making them feel nuanced. You know, the performances really do help this film a lot, I think.
Reason to see number 3, some pretty damn good action sequences. Okay, so there's gonna be a couple of, let me clarify here with the action sequences, because there's a variety of action sequences. A lot of good on-foot sequences, a lot of great moments that really honor the game in terms of having to get out of a real perilous situation, and she has a lot of the grunting and struggling. There's some real type of fighting that if there was just some blood, this movie would have been R-rated. So where there's a couple moments where people were like, oh, like in a PG-13 movie, that's really hard to get a reaction like that.
Well, and a lot of the action sequences too enhance the struggle and the stakes. They take time to build character beats around the action. And one thing I appreciated is that coming out of a video game, there is a variety to the action sequences. So you have one that feels like, oh, here's what might have been your sneaking mission in a game, or here's your puzzle.
Yeah.
Like that airplane sequence is, you know, sort of...
That's teasing the trailer,
yeah, her versus the elements. There's a lot of variety, and for the most part, captured in a way that accentuates it.
I saw this on one Rotten Tomatoes capsule before we started doing this review. One thing that they said was like the action scenes lack tension, and I wouldn't agree with that, actually.
I don't think
that
so.
was just one takeaway I had from it. There's something to be said about certain action sequences. For a lot of them, I was definitely like, no, this is a pretty intense situation. There's suspense to some of these scenes.
Yeah, even if every one of them isn't necessary, and even if some of them perhaps go on a little long, I feel like nothing was put there just frivolously.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel the hits and the punches and the crunches of it all, you know?
Or just the intensity of the situation, which is oftentimes a very ignored thing in an action movie. Yeah.
Reason to see number 4, this is just the best written and directed video game adaptation thus far.
John and I feel pretty much the same about this movie. You might have seen our early responses to it, and we were acting like, oh, this film is amazing. I was excited for the fact that this film is a solid, good action video game adaptation.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I wanted from this movie. If you look back at my trailer review for the film, I don't feel this film needs to be the greatest thing in the world. I need it to be good enough to open up a door for better video game movies, and I feel like it has the potential to do that. All I really wanted was just a good entry. I didn't really care for an amazing film. This isn't like Wonder Woman in the sense of I was emotionally moved and captivated.
It's a popcorn action movie still.
But it's an entertaining, good one and well-written one and well-directed. Like
sharply executed for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's structured well. It takes its time and has a good pace about it.
It felt like somebody cared about it, and it felt like they took their time in tuning the elements. Like, is it gonna melt your face off? No, probably not. But it is a solid action movie among a bunch of other action movies I've seen this year. It left a good impression on me. And yeah, for the most part, there was nothing that was ever glaringly out of place or glaringly flat to me, ill-conceived or anything like that. While the direction might not be the sharpest or the most nuanced or inventive.
One thing that I really loved about just the credits of this film, immediately following the actors, they're pretty much crunched together, are the stunt performers. You can tell there's a lot of stuntmen in this movie. There's some use of CGI for sure, especially in a movie like this, but there's plenty of times where I'm like, I'm really glad they took the time to let stuntmen do their job in this film.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of this takes place in real locations, so it has a certain realism about just the whole affair.
Yeah, there's like CGI enhancements to be had here or there, but for the most part, it felt pretty grounded in what they were embarking on. The video game gets really mystical with certain elements that are featured in this movie, and I think you put it best. You said going mystical and meaning us halfway for like a movie adaptation.
Yeah, it's like they didn't go full Indiana Jones about it, but they kind of split the difference and they achieved their own level.
And one thing I want to say, last thing, is that the movie's not flashy a lot with its cinematography, but there are some great cinematography moments. Especially that scene that you see in the trailer where the ship's crashing and she jumps overboard. There's this wonderful shot where she's underwater, the lightning is flashing and you see the ship falling and she's just, it makes it that's the kind of thing that makes it tense.
Yeah, it's
those attention to details. Yeah. Reasons not to see It's a little predictable and cliche. Like we keep saying, this film is a solid, good movie. We're not saying it's the most amazing thing in the world, but in terms of a video game movie, it's pretty damn good.
This gives me hope.
Yeah, exactly. That's this film. Yeah.
It's not like Assassin's Creed where it comes out and we're like, oh
god, they're not getting any better.
Far from the mark. You know?
So with territory like this, when you kind of have to play it a little bit safe in certain areas, yeah, some stuff with the characters does get a little cliche. Some stuff does get predictable. How I best described it, I think, was there's no scene in this movie I don't like, but there are some moments within scenes I don't really like.
Yeah.
Like certain reaction moments, things that I was like, nah, that's a little too cliche. Or even the way the movie ends. This is not a spoiler for you guys at all. It's a franchise building movie, so of course they're gonna try to end it in a way where you're gonna get a sequel and they're setting you up. For a hot minute there, I thought they were just gonna wrap up this story and end, and I was like, cool!
Nice!
But then they kind of shoehorn some shit in there that I'm like, I didn't really care for it. Every once in a while there's some cheesy stuff, but overall it's about the execution of that material. And while I think all the action scenes are really well shot and really well done, some of them don't feel entirely necessary, but the reason I can forgive it is A, it's a video game movie and we haven't had great ones. B, they're still shot well. Like there's this bicycle chase early on in the movie that's done really well. I really enjoy the sequence, but ultimately you're like, wasn't entirely necessary for the movie. There's another on-foot action sequence in the first half of the movie that you're like, nah, it wasn't really necessary. It's still done well.
Yeah, and because of those things, there are times where maybe like 3/4 of the way through, I started to think, okay, you know, we're at such a point in the story where I kind of know what we got to do to get this wrapped up, so it starts to maybe drag a little bit, or you start to feel the time a little bit.
I think some of the unnecessary action moments did occur because if they didn't have them, I feel like audiences who came in to see an action movie based on Tomb Raider would have been like, where's all the action? I think it would have been cool build-up to get the action just past the midpoint of this movie. That would have been neat. But for audiences like this, and you have to play it a little safe, it just makes sense to me that they would throw in a couple of action scenes that are not ultimately necessary, but still executed in a great choreographed way.
Reason not to see number 2. This isn't the monumental, emotional video game film achievement you might be hoping it is.
This isn't gonna be that. Like, we're here to just tell you that we're really highly recommending it because of the fact that it's the first just solid, good video game adaptation film.
Yeah, with not that many asterisks next to it, you know?
We don't want to tell you guys that, like, we were emotionally captivated by this movie or that it's necessarily groundbreaking. Like, I think it has set a bar, granted, not a very hard bar to hit. It set a bar that's a good intro, and you could see this bar being upped. You can see this bar being beat, but it's at least set a bar. But if you're going in for like a masterpiece of a film, something that's like what The Dark Knight did for comic book movies or for what Wonder Woman did for the DC, it's not that film. But if you're going in for like, finally, a good video game movie, this is it.
One that proves that we're at least capable now, and here's a good example of how it might work, and here's some examples of how it could be
It's
better.
like when you get like a solid, good MCU film. It's like, oh, it's not like necessarily the greatest emotional thing in the world, but it's good, it's solid,
Yeah, and I left feeling like there's potential for these kinds of movies in the future, you know, this is a step in the right direction, it's a step up, so while it's not, you know, 10 out of 10, it's still a pretty enjoyable popcorn movie, subject to all the things that those movies are. But if you're down with that kind of thing, I think you'll enjoy this.
All in all, I guess John and I would definitely say there are way more reasons to see Tomb Raider than there are not to see Tomb Raider. If the expectation factor for you has been low, you'll enjoy it even more. If we made it too high for you, you might be a little disappointed. Who knows? I say just go check it out for yourself. Enjoy the ride. All right, guys. Well, did you see Tomb Raider? What'd you think of it? Or what video game do you honestly think can make the most solid movie or TV show adaptation? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Put it in the comment boxes below, people. Anyway, you guys can subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell to get notified every time one of our videos is up. And you can go ahead and check us out on Patreon. Thank you to everyone who's joined our Patreon so far. We do full-length Q&As over there, weekly video responses, as well as full-length TV show reactions to plenty of TV shows right now. Would love to have you. And also, please check us out on viewerreviews.com.
Much appreciated.